I didn't stand up until the lawyer asked if anyone had more evidence to present. The courtroom had gone silent after hours of financial reports, testimonies, and excuses. That was when I rose. My brother, Daniel, froze mid-smirk. My mother's pearls rattled as her hand trembled against her chest. And my father, our father, stared at me with the kind of disbelief reserved for ghosts. "I do," I said, voice steady. The judge motioned for me to continue. From my bag, I pulled a folder. Inside were contracts, ownership papers, and confidential emails. "This company doesn't belong to them," I said. "Eyes on the judge. It belongs to me." The room erupted. Gasps, whispers, the shuffle of bodies trying to lean closer. Daniel leaned back, laughing under his breath. "More lies," he spat. "You've always been desperate for attention." But I didn't flinch. I didn't blink. I laid the documents on the table, each stamped and notarized. Signatures they didn't recognize, but I did, because while they played the role of untouchable heirs, I had been watching and waiting. They used to call me the Shadow, not even behind my back, directly to my face. The quiet one, Dad said dismissively whenever I voiced an opinion. Daniel, though, he was a golden child. Private school, a company car at 21, weekend getaways funded by business trips. Me? I filed papers in the basement office and paid for night classes by waiting tables. Still, I convinced myself maybe one day they would see me, not as a burden, not as a mistake, but as family. That day never came. The shift began when my grandfather passed. He was quiet, distant, almost invisible at family gatherings. I never understood why he always pulled me aside when others ignored me. Once, when I was 13, he slipped me a pen. "People will forget promises," he whispered, "but not signatures." I didn't understand him then, but I do now. When the will was read, my parents leaned forward, expecting control of everything. Instead, the lawyer paused, glanced at me, and said, "To my granddaughter, I leave full rights to my 38% shares of Caldwell Industries." The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut glass. My father demanded clarification, my mother cried, and Daniel cursed. But it was written. It was binding. I became the largest shareholder overnight. I didn't tell them what came next. I didn't reveal that those shares gave me leverage. Instead, I listened. I observed. Dad's empire was crumbling under investigations. Daniel spent company money like pocket change, covering gambling debts and luxury trips. Mom maintained the image with loans, jewelry bought on credit, and lies layered like perfume. And while they drowned, I built lifeboats in silence. I formed a holding company, acquired more shares from minority investors who were eager to sell, tired of Daniel's arrogance and Dad's declining leadership. Piece by piece, I built control. By the time they noticed, it was already too late. At family dinners, I remained silent. When Daniel mocked me, I smiled faintly. When Dad complained about betrayers in the company, I asked innocent questions. "Do you think you'll always run things, Dad?" He laughed, poured more whiskey, and said, "Who else could?" I knew then. His pride would blind him until the end. The final act began with the audit. Emails leaked. Fraud discovered. Suddenly, the empire looked less like an empire and more like ashes. Daniel barged into my apartment one night, sweat dripping, eyes wild. "I need cash. Now." I tilted my head. "Would you have lent me money last year?" His jaw tightened. "I'm your brother." "And I was your shadow," I replied. "Remember?" I closed the door in his face. Court was inevitable. The creditors wanted blood. The judge wanted order. And my family wanted to pretend they still had control. But that was when I stood. That was when I spread the truth across the courtroom. Contracts proving I own the majority. Emails proving Daniel's theft. Receipts proving Dad's lies. Their illusion cracked right there. My father turned pale, his voice breaking as he insisted it was impossible. My mother sobbed, mascara streaking down her cheeks. Daniel lunged forward, snarling, "You forged this. You." "Enough," the judge said. But I didn't need the judge. I looked at Daniel, really looked. The once proud air reduced to desperation, his arrogance rotting into fear. With signatures, I said softly, the kind people don't forget. Afterward, they didn't speak to me. They left the courtroom like ghosts in daylight, haunted by the silence that followed. Within a week, they moved out of the mansion. The cars were repossessed. The art sold. The empire gone. The company? Mine. But I didn't keep it for glory. I didn't want the empire they had poisoned. Instead, I dismantled it. Piece by piece, I sold assets, cleared debts, and rebuilt something smaller. Sustainable, clean, honest. Daniel called once, voice hollow. How did you do it? I paid attention, I said, and I waited. Now I live simply. A modest apartment, second-hand furniture, a car that doesn't turn heads. People think it's strange. They expect victory to look like crowns and applause. But I don't need validation. I don't crave recognition. I've already won. Because sometimes revenge doesn't burn with fire. Sometimes it whispers through paper, through silence, through signatures. The kind no one can erase.